They forced the old alien to crawl for medicine. Before we dive into this story, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. The sterile corridor of Galactic Outpost Station 47 gleamed with the cold efficiency of Janitor design. Among the sleek metal surfaces and blue-tinted lighting, a wizened figure inched forward on trembling limbs. Station Maintenance Supervisor Tellen Vox stood at attention, clipboard in one set of tendrils and communication device in another as he observed the spectacle with detached interest. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of mild amusement among the Janitor species, as he watched the elderly Meverin struggle across the polished floor. Protocol dictates that all non-essential personnel must demonstrate capability to perform basic mobility tasks before receiving medical supplements. Vox announced to the small crowd of station workers who had gathered to witness the daily ritual. Medical resources are allocated based on priority and demonstrated need. The old Meverin, Galtar was his name, though few bothered to use it, dragged himself forward another painful meter. His once proud exoskeleton had grown dull and brittle with age, cracking at the joints with each labored movement. The medicine dispensary stood at the far end of the 50-meter corridor, and Galtar had managed only 15 so far. His breathing came in shallow gasps, the respiratory holes along his sides fluttering weakly. "He won't make it today," whispered a Plavian technician to her colleague. 3 days in a row now. Soon they'll just stop putting out his medication altogether. Her companion, a tall, spindly Tez-san, nodded. Janitor efficiency. Can't argue with their results, though. Station 47's productivity is up 18% since they implemented these wellness incentives. The gathered aliens maintained a respectful distance from the struggling elder. None dared interfere with station protocols, especially those concerning resource allocation. The Janitor Confederacy had clear guidelines about survival fitness and contribution metrics, and everyone knew the consequences of challenging them. Galtar collapsed, his limbs splaying awkwardly against the cold floor. A raspy sound escaped from his mandibles, something between a cry of pain and a plea for help. The medicine dispenser's soft blue light continued to shine, seemingly just as distant as when he'd started. Then came the sound of a maintenance cart turning the corner. Tyler Grant whistled as he pushed his janitorial cart down the corridor, the squeaking wheels announcing his arrival before anyone saw him. The only human assigned to Station 47. He wore the standard gray maintenance uniform with the sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing forearms covered in what the aliens considered strange and fascinating patterns, tattoos depicting Earth's constellations as seen from his hometown. He stopped whistling when he saw the gathering. Tyler had been on Station 47 for just 3 months, but that was long enough to understand what was happening. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene. The frail Meverin on the ground, the impassive Janitor supervisor, the crowd of onlookers maintaining their careful distance. "Whoa, what's going on here?" Tyler asked, his voice echoing in the suddenly silent corridor. Supervisor Vox turned all 4 eyes toward the human. "Routine wellness assessment, maintenance technician Grant. Please proceed with your scheduled duties." Tyler looked past the supervisor to where Galtar lay trembling on the floor. "That doesn't look like an assessment to me. That looks like torture." "Your species definitions are irrelevant to station protocol," Vox replied calmly. "Citizen Galtar must demonstrate mobility capability to receive his arthritis medication. This is standard procedure." Tyler's jaw tightened. He'd seen this before, not the exact scenario, but the same cold calculation disguised as efficiency. Back on Earth, in the care facility where his grandfather had spent his final years, there had been orderlies who made the elderly earn their comfort, claiming it built character. "How far does he have to go?" Tyler asked, his voice deceptively casual as he leaned against his cart. "The dispensary is 35 meters from his current position," Vox stated matter-of-factly. "He has failed to complete the assessment for 3 consecutive days." Tyler looked at the old Meverin, meeting his large, compound eyes. Despite the alien physiology, Tyler recognized the emotions there: pain, humiliation, and a fading hope. "That's enough of this," Tyler said quietly. He stepped away from his cart and walked toward Galtar. The crowd of aliens shifted nervously, murmurs rippling through their ranks. No one had ever interfered with a wellness assessment before. Maintenance Technician Grant. Vox's voice took on a warning tone. "Station regulations prohibit interference with medical protocols. Return to your assigned duties immediately." Tyler ignored him, kneeling beside the fallen Meverin. "Hey there," he said gently. "My name's Tyler. What's yours?" The old alien's mandibles clicked weakly. "Galtar," he managed, his translator making the words sound thin and frail. "Galtar Nevkorian." Tyler nodded. "Nice to meet you properly, Galtar. Listen, I think this assessment has gone on long enough. What do you say we get you that medicine now?" Before Galtar could respond, Tyler slid one arm under the Meverin's thorax and another beneath his abdomen, carefully lifting the alien. Galtar was surprisingly light, his once sturdy exoskeleton now hollow with age and illness. "What are you doing?" Galtar whispered, his translator struggling to convey his mixture of shock and gratitude. Tyler adjusted his grip to ensure the Meverin's comfort. "Where I come from, we don't make our elders crawl for help. We carry them if they need it." The human turned to face the stunned crowd, cradling Galtar against his chest. The old alien's limbs curled instinctively around Tyler's arms, like a child seeking security. Maintenance Technician Grant. Supervisor Vox stepped forward, blocking Tyler's path. "You are in direct violation of station protocol. Release Citizen Galtar immediately or face disciplinary action." Tyler looked down at the Zenther, his usually friendly face hardening. "With all due respect, Supervisor, your protocol sucks. This man deserves dignity, not humiliation." "The Meverin is not a man," Vox corrected, his tone clinical. "And station resources must be allocated based on demonstrated need and potential contribution." "He's demonstrated plenty of need," Tyler countered. "And as for contribution, Galtar, how long have you worked on this station?" 42 standard cycles, the old alien replied, his voice growing slightly stronger in Tyler's secure hold. "I was part of the original construction team. Senior engineer for environmental systems." Tyler raised an eyebrow at Vox. "Sounds like he's contributed quite a bit to me. Now, I'm going to take him to get his medication, and then I'm going to help him back to his quarters. That's happening, one way or another." The human's directness stunned the gathered aliens. In the Zenther Confederacy, such open defiance of authority was almost unheard of. Several of the onlookers began to back away, unwilling to be associated with this breach of protocol. Vox's upper limbs twitched with agitation. "This will be reported to Station Command. Your employment status will be reviewed." "Go ahead," Tyler shrugged, the motion gentle to avoid disturbing Galtar. "I'll be sure to mention how you make retired engineers crawl for basic medicine. I bet the Galactic Workers Union would love to hear about that too." The mention of the GWU caused a visible reaction among the gathered workers. The labor organization had been gaining influence even within Zenther space, and rumors of their representatives visiting outer stations had been circulating for months. Supervisor Vox stepped aside, his posture rigid with contained anger. "This incident is not concluded, human." "No, it's not," Tyler agreed, walking past him toward the medicine dispensary. "But it's about to change." As Tyler carried Galtar down the corridor, the old Meverin's trembling gradually subsided. The alien rested his head against Tyler's shoulder, an unexpected gesture of trust that made the human's throat tighten with emotion. "Why?" Galtar asked softly. "Why risk your position for me?" Tyler continued walking steadily. "My grandfather raised me after my parents died. He was the strongest person I knew, until arthritis took that strength away from him. I watched orderlies make him struggle to prove he still had it in him, instead of just helping." He glanced down at Galtar. "I promised myself I'd never stand by and watch that happen to anyone else if I could help it." "But I am not your grandfather," Galtar observed. "I am not even your species." Tyler reached the medicine dispensary and carefully shifted Galtar to press his identification chip against the scanner. "Doesn't matter. Respect isn't something you earn by crawling across a floor. It's something you deserve because you've lived a life. The dispensary hummed, recognizing Galter's chip, and a small compartment slid open to reveal a container of iridescent blue gel, the specialized medication that would ease the painful deterioration of his exoskeletal joints. Tyler retrieved the container and handed it to Galtar, whose trembling appendages clutched it like a treasure. "Thank you," the old Meverin whispered, the simple words carrying the weight of profound gratitude. "Don't mention it," Tyler replied with a small smile. "Now, let's get you back to your quarters so you can take that in peace." As Tyler turned to carry Galtar back down the corridor, they found their path blocked by a group of station security officers, Zinthers in the distinctive black uniforms of enforcement personnel. "Maintenance Technician Tyler Grant," the lead officer announced, "you are hereby detained pending review of protocol violations. Release the Meverin citizen and surrender yourself for processing." Tyler's hold on Galtar tightened slightly. "I'm just helping him back to his quarters. You can process me after that." "Negative," the security officer replied. "Surrender the Meverin now." The corridor had grown crowded as word of the confrontation spread throughout the station. Workers from various departments had gathered at a safe distance, watching the standoff with a mixture of fear and fascination. Tyler looked around, noticing the many eyes upon them. Then he looked down at Galtar, who was already beginning to tremble again at the prospect of being abandoned. "No," Tyler said simply. "I'm taking him home first. Then you can do whatever you need to do with me." The security officers advanced, hands moving to the neural stunners at their belts. "This is your final warning, human. Release the Meverin and surrender." "It's all right," Galtar whispered to Tyler. "Put me down. I don't want you to suffer on my behalf." Tyler shook his head. "That's not happening." What happened next would later be described in dozens of witness reports, each slightly different, yet agreeing on the essential facts. As the security officers moved to apprehend Tyler, several workers suddenly stepped forward from the crowd, forming a loose barrier between the human carrying the elderly Meverin and the Zinther security team. "The human is performing a medical transport," stated a tall Tessin engineer, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. "Section 47B of station regulations permits emergency assistance when a citizen is in distress." "I concur," added a Plavian medical technician. "As a qualified medical observer, I can confirm that Citizen Galtar requires immediate rest following medication administration. Standard medical protocol." The security officers hesitated, their training not having prepared them for collective resistance. The lead officer's communication device buzzed, and he stepped back to consult it privately. Tyler looked at the workers who had stepped forward in surprise and gratitude. The Tessin engineer gave him a subtle nod before returning her attention to the security team. After a tense moment, the lead security officer returned. "Maintenance Technician Grant, you are ordered to escort Citizen Galtar to his quarters immediately and then report to Station Command for disciplinary review." "Gladly," Tyler replied, careful to keep any trace of triumph from his voice. The security team parted, allowing Tyler to pass with Galtar still held securely in his arms. As they moved through the corridor, the gathered workers watched in silence. But something had changed in their collective demeanor. What had begun as fearful curiosity had transformed into something else, a quiet solidarity, a subtle awakening. Tyler found Galtar's quarters with the old Meverin's guidance, a small, Spartanly furnished room in the station's residential sector. He carefully set Galtar down on a cushioned platform that served as the alien equivalent of a bed. "There you go," Tyler said, making sure Galtar was steady before stepping back. "Do you need help with the medication?" "No," Galtar replied, his appendages already working to open the container. "I can manage this part myself." Tyler nodded, moving toward the door. "I'd better go face the music then. They're probably planning to ship me back to Earth on the next transport." "Wait," Galtar called, his voice stronger than it had been all day. "Before you go, I must know. On your world, is this common? What you did?" Tyler considered the question. "Not common enough," he admitted. "But it's what we aspire to, at our best." My grandfather used to say that you can judge a society by how it treats its most vulnerable members. Galter's compound eyes seemed to glimmer with an inner light. Your grandfather was wise. He paused. The Zinther believe that resources must flow to the strong, that this is the natural order. For many cycles, the other species in the Confederacy have accepted this as truth. Well, Tyler said with a shrug, humans have a knack for questioning truths like that. It's gotten us into trouble more than once. Perhaps some trouble is necessary, Galtar replied thoughtfully. Your actions today, they will not be forgotten, Tyler Grant. Tyler smiled. Just focus on feeling better, okay? I'll check on you tomorrow, if they haven't locked me up or shot me out an airlock. As the human turned to leave, Galtar spoke once more. Tyler, thank you for carrying me like. The alien paused, searching for the right word. Like family, Tyler finished for him. Like someone who matters. With a final nod, he stepped out of the quarters and headed toward Station Command, where he knew a significant reprimand awaited him. What Tyler didn't realize was that news of his actions was already spreading throughout Station 47, transmitted through official channels and unofficial whispers alike. The image of a human carrying an elderly Meverin with gentle determination had struck a chord among the station's diverse workforce, a silent challenge to the cold efficiency that had governed their lives for so long. In the command center of Station 47, Director Krell Zenthor reviewed the security footage with growing concern. The director's 6 eyes narrowed as they watched the human defying station protocol, carrying the old Meverin through the corridor and inspiring unexpected support from other workers. This is problematic, the director stated to his senior staff. The human demonstrates dangerous tendencies toward emotional decision-making and disregard for established hierarchies. Senior Advisor Pelter inclined her head. It is consistent with known human behavioral patterns, Director. Their history on Earth demonstrates a recurring pattern of rejecting efficiency-based social structures. And yet the Galactic Council insisted we integrate them into our workforce, Director Zenthor said with a tone of disapproval. They claimed humans would bring innovative thinking to our operations. This may require more than standard disciplinary measures, Advisor Pelter suggested. Perhaps reassignment to a more remote facility or termination of the human's contract entirely. Director Zinther's upper limbs performed a complex gesture indicating deep thought. No, that could create unwanted attention from the Galactic Workers Union. We must handle this strategically. Outside the director's office, Tyler Grant sat on a bench, waiting to be called in for his disciplinary review. Despite the trouble he was in, he didn't regret his actions. The look of dignity returning to Galter's alien features had been worth it. What Tyler couldn't know was that his simple act of compassion had set in motion events that would soon transform not only Station 47, but potentially the entire power structure of the Zinther Confederacy. The first ripples of change were already spreading outward, like waves across the surface of a previously undisturbed pond. On the other side of the station, Galtar Nevkorian applied the medication to his aching joints, experiencing the blessed relief it brought. But more significant than the physical comfort was the emotional awakening he felt, a long-dormant sense of purpose igniting once again in his ancient heart. With trembling appendages, he activated his long-unused personal communication device and entered a secure frequency that hadn't been accessed in over 15 cycles. This is Engineer Emeritus Galtar Nevkorian. He transmitted when the connection established. Verification code, Starfall 7 Equinox. The time has come to reactivate the network. A brief pause, then a surprised voice responded. Verification confirmed, Engineer Emeritus. The network welcomes your return. What has prompted this after so many cycles of silence? Galter's compound eyes fixed on the door through which Tyler Grant had departed. I have witnessed something today that changes everything, he replied. A demonstration of an alternative path, one we had almost forgotten was possible. Explain, the voice requested. I will, Galtar promised. But first, we must ensure the safety of a human called Tyler Grant. He has shown us what we have lost and what we might reclaim. In the station's security center, the four officers who had confronted Tyler were engaged in a hushed conversation, their usual professional detachment disturbed by the day's events. The human's behavior was irrational, the lead officer insisted, risking disciplinary action for an elderly Meverin with minimal remaining productivity value. Yet 17 workers intervened on their behalf, another officer pointed out, including species that typically avoid confrontation. An anomaly, the lead officer dismissed. A temporary emotional response to the human's disruptive influence. The youngest officer, newly assigned to Station 47, spoke hesitantly. My maternal progenitor is approaching elder status. When I observed the human carrying the Meverin, I experienced an unexpected system response. The other officers turned to stare at their colleague. What kind of response? The lead officer demanded. The young Zenther's four eyes blinked in sequence, not the pattern for amusement, but a rarer expression of emotional disturbance. I found myself approving of the human's actions. I found myself imagining my own progenitor in the Meverin's position. A heavy silence fell over the security center, the admission hanging in the air like a dangerous explosive. Such thoughts were not merely unprofessional. In the strictly hierarchical society of the Zenther, they bordered on subversive. You will report to psychological reconditioning at the end of your shift, the lead officer finally ordered. Such ideational contamination must be addressed before it affects your performance. The young officer lowered all four eyes in submission. Yes, superior. But as the security team resumed their duties, each of them carried a private unease, a seed of doubt planted by the sight of a human carrying an elderly alien with the same care one might show to their own parent or child. Meanwhile, in the vast interstellar network of communication that connected the countless worlds of the galaxy, an alert was being transmitted, subtle and encrypted, detectable only to those who knew precisely what to look for. It originated from Station 47, from the quarters of an elderly Meverin who had been silent for 15 cycles, and it carried a message that would soon reach the highest echelons of power. The catalyst has arrived. Preparation Phase Omega is initiated. Throughout Station 47, workers of a dozen different species completed their shifts, returned to their quarters, and exchanged quiet conversations about what they had witnessed. Some dismissed it as human irrationality, others as a curiosity soon to be corrected by station management. But in more quarters than anyone might have expected, the image of Tyler Grant carrying Galtar with gentle determination had resonated on a level deeper than rational analysis. It had awakened questions that the Zenther Confederacy had long worked to suppress, questions about dignity, compassion, and what truly constituted an advanced civilization. As the station's lighting dimmed to simulate night, these questions continued to stir in the minds of its inhabitants, like the first faint breeze before a gathering storm. Tyler Grant, unaware of the forces he had set in motion, sat in the small office of Director Zenthor, facing the 6 unblinking eyes of the station's highest authority. Maintenance Technician Grant, the director began. Your actions today represent a significant breach of station protocol and Zenther Confederacy regulations regarding resource allocation and hierarchical respect. Tyler sat straight in his chair, hands resting on his knees. I understand that's your view, Director. From my perspective, I was providing necessary assistance to a station resident in distress. Your perspective, Director Zenthor said coldly, is irrelevant to the operation of this station. Humans were permitted to join our workforce on a probationary basis, with the clear understanding that they would adapt to our established systems, not attempt to subvert them. I wasn't trying to subvert anything, Tyler replied. I was just doing what seemed right. Right is a subjective assessment. Efficiency is objective. The Zenther Confederacy has achieved the highest productivity rates in the galaxy by eliminating subjective decision-making from resource allocation. Tyler leaned forward slightly. With all due respect, Director, there's nothing efficient about making an elderly engineer crawl 50 meters for medication he needs. It's cruel, and cruelty has costs you might not be measuring. Director Zinther's limbs twitched in a gesture Tyler had come to recognize as irritation. You assume your species' emotional framework applies universally. The Meverin understood his place in the station's hierarchy. Did he? Tyler challenged. Or was he just afraid to question it? Fear and understanding aren't the same thing, Director. The Zinther leader studied Tyler for a long moment. Your species is remarkably resistant to hierarchical integration. This has been noted in reports from other facilities where humans have been employed. Tyler couldn't help but smile slightly. We're complicated that way. Indeed. Director Zinther's voice took on a more formal tone. Tyler Grant, your contract stipulates that significant violations of station protocol may result in immediate termination and return to Earth. Tyler's smile faded, but he nodded. I'm aware of that. However, the director continued, your performance metrics and maintenance operations have been exceptional. The efficiency improvements in your sector since your arrival cannot be dismissed. This surprised Tyler. He'd worked hard, certainly, but hadn't expected the Zinther to acknowledge it. Therefore, Director Zinther concluded, you will be issued a formal reprimand, which will remain in your employment record. You are hereby restricted to Maintenance Sector 7 for the next 30 station cycles, and your recreation privileges are suspended for the same period. Tyler blinked. So, I'm not being sent back to Earth. Not at this time. However, be aware that any further disruptions will result in immediate contract termination. You are dismissed. Tyler stood, still somewhat stunned by the relatively mild punishment. He had been prepared for much worse. Thank you, Director. As he turned to leave, Director Zinther added, one more thing, Maintenance Technician Grant. You are forbidden from further contact with the Meverin citizen Galtar Nevkorian. This restriction is permanent and non-negotiable. Tyler paused at the door, his hand on the control panel. A protest rose to his lips, but he swallowed it, recognizing the precariousness of his position. Understood, Director. As the door slid open, Director Zinther said, the Zinther have maintained peace and prosperity across 12 sectors for over 300 cycles. Human. We did not achieve this by prioritizing individuals over systems. Remember that. Tyler stepped through the doorway without replying, the door sliding shut behind him. In the empty corridor, he leaned against the wall and exhaled slowly, processing what had just happened. He'd kept his job, but at the cost of abandoning Galtar. The thought of the elderly Meverin waiting for him to check in tomorrow, only to be met with silence, made his chest tight with guilt. Tough meeting, a voice asked from nearby. Tyler turned to find the Tez-Sin engineer who had spoken up during the confrontation with security. She stood a respectful distance away, her tall, slender form silhouetted against the corridor's blue lighting. Could have been worse, Tyler admitted. I'm confined to my sector for a month, but I get to keep my job. The Tez-Sin nodded. Director Zinther likely recognized that terminating you would create more disruption than containing you. She hesitated, then added, I am Engineer Vela. My team maintains the environmental systems in Residential Sector 3. Tyler Grant. He replied, though she clearly already knew his name. Thanks for stepping up earlier. That was brave. Vela's long fingers intertwined in what Tyler had learned was a Tez-Sin gesture of discomfort. It was not bravery. It was an unexpected impulse. The Zinther would call it irrationality. Whatever you call it, I appreciate it. Tyler pushed himself away from the wall. I should get back to my quarters before I break any more rules. Wait, Vela said, her voice lowering. There is something you should know. The Meverin you helped, Galtar Nevkorian, he is not merely a retired engineer. Tyler tilted his head. What do you mean? Vela glanced around the empty corridor before continuing. Before the Zinther Confederacy expanded to this sector, Galtar was a senior representative to the Galactic Council. He was among the most respected voices for cooperation between species. What happened to him? When the Zinther negotiated control of this region, many former leaders were strategically reassigned. Their influence diminished, their histories gradually obscured. Vela's large eyes studied Tyler's face. What you did today, it did not go unnoticed. Tyler frowned. I'm just a maintenance technician. I'm not trying to start any trouble. Sometimes, Vela replied. Change begins not with those who seek to create it, but with those who simply refuse to accept what is wrong. She straightened to her full height. I must return to my duties. But know this, Tyler Grant. You are not as alone on this station as you might believe. With that cryptic statement, the Tezcan engineer turned and walked away, leaving Tyler staring after her in confusion. As he made his way back to his small quarters in the maintenance sector, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling that he had stumbled into something much larger than a simple act of kindness toward an elderly alien. The director's unexpectedly lenient punishment, Vela's strange revelations about Galtar, the way the workers had intervened during the confrontation with security, none of it quite added up. In his quarters, Tyler sat on the edge of his bunk, running a hand over his face. He thought of Galtar, alone in his room, perhaps wondering if the human would keep his promise to check on him tomorrow. The director's prohibition weighed heavily on him. I'm sorry, Galtar, he murmured to the empty room. I tried. But as he prepared for sleep, Tyler couldn't help but recall the look in the old Meveran's compound eyes when he'd been carried with dignity rather than forced to crawl. It had been worth it, whatever came next. What Tyler couldn't know was that across the station, in the privacy of their quarters, dozens of workers were engaged in hushed conversations about what they had witnessed. In the strictly controlled environment of the Zinther Confederacy, where efficiency and hierarchy reigned supreme, a simple act of compassion had created a hairline fracture in the foundation of authority, a tiny fissure that, under the right conditions, might grow into something much more significant. And in his quarters, Galtar Nevkorian sat in meditation, his ancient mind clearer than it had been in cycles, as communications from across the sector began to filter in through his reactivated network. The spark had been lit. Now they needed only to nurture the flame. The next morning cycle found Tyler Grant in Maintenance Sector 7, diligently repairing a malfunctioning waste reclamation valve. His hands worked automatically, his mind elsewhere, specifically, with an elderly Meveran he was forbidden to visit. Attention, station personnel, the automated announcement system echoed through the corridor. Reminder, wellness assessments for residential sectors 3 through 5 will commence at mid-cycle. All qualifying personnel must report to designated assessment corridors. Tyler's grip tightened on his wrench. Somewhere on the station, Galtar would be expected to attempt his crawl again, and this time, Tyler wouldn't be there to help him. You appear distracted, Maintenance Technician Grant. Tyler looked up to find Supervisor Vox standing over him, all four eyes blinking in their methodical sequence. Tyler had to admire the Zinther's dedication to micromanagement. Less than a day after the incident, and already the supervisor was checking up on him. Just focused on the job, Supervisor, Tyler replied, returning his attention to the valve. Your emotional state is irrelevant to your assigned tasks, Vox stated. However, I am instructed to inform you that Citizen Galtar Nevkorian did not report for his wellness assessment this morning. Tyler's head snapped up. Is he all right? Did someone check on him? Vox's upper limbs performed a dismissive gesture. His status is not your concern, as per Director Zinther's explicit instructions. So no one's checked on him? Tyler stood, wiping his hands on his maintenance uniform. He could be seriously ill, or... Your assigned tasks are not complete, Vox interrupted. Return to your duties immediately. Tyler took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. Losing his temper would only make things worse. Yes, Supervisor. I'll finish the repairs right away. Vox lingered for a moment longer, as if expecting further resistance, then turned and walked away with the precise, measured steps characteristic of the Zinther species. As soon as the supervisor was out of sight, Tyler hurriedly finished securing the valve. His mind raced with worry for Galtar. The old Meveran had seemed stronger after receiving his medication yesterday, but what if he'd had a relapse? What if he needed help but couldn't call for it? Tyler knew he couldn't directly disobey the director's orders by visiting Galtar, but the prohibition didn't prevent him from asking someone else to check on the elderly alien. The question was, who could he trust? His thoughts immediately went to Engineer Vela, the Tezcan who had spoken up during yesterday's confrontation. She had seemed sympathetic and had even sought him out afterward to share information about Galter's past. As Tyler sealed the access panel on the waste reclamation system, his personal communication device chimed, an unusual occurrence, as most station communications came through the central system rather than private channels. He glanced at the screen and saw an anonymous message. Maintenance required. Environmental Control Junction 47B, Residential Sector 3, Priority Level 3. Tyler frowned. Priority Level 3 wasn't urgent, but it did require same-day attention. More intriguing was the location, Residential Sector 3, where Galter's quarters were located. And most maintenance requests came through the central system with proper identification codes, not anonymous messages to personal devices. It could be a trap, of course, a test from Director Janitor to see if Tyler would violate his restrictions. But it could also be an opportunity. Tyler tapped his communication device to accept the request, then gathered his tools. If questioned, he had a legitimate work order for Residential Sector 3. That it might allow him to at least pass by Galter's quarters was a coincidence he could plausibly deny. As Tyler made his way through the station toward Residential Sector 3, he noticed a subtle change in how the other workers responded to him. Where before he had received the polite indifference typically shown to maintenance personnel, now he found himself the recipient of discreet nods, lingering glances, and in one case, a Plavian technician deliberately stepping aside to allow him easier passage through a crowded corridor. Word had spread, it seemed. His act of defiance or compassion, depending on one's perspective, had not gone unnoticed. Environmental Control Junction 47B turned out to be located just 2 corridors away from Galter's quarters. As Tyler arrived at the junction, he found Engineer Vela already there, her tall form bent over an open access panel. Engineer Vela. Tyler greeted her with careful neutrality, aware of the station's ubiquitous surveillance systems. I received a maintenance request for this junction. The Tessin straightened, her large eyes meeting his. Indeed, there appears to be a fluctuation in the atmospheric composition sensors. I was attempting to isolate the cause before requesting maintenance assistance. Tyler moved toward the access panel, setting down his tool case. Let me take a look. As he leaned in to examine the junction, Vela moved closer, her voice dropping to a near whisper. Galtar is safe. He has been moved. Tyler's hands stilled momentarily before he resumed his work. Moved where? He asked quietly. That information is restricted for your safety and his, Vela replied. But know that your actions yesterday accelerated certain, long-dormant plans. Tyler connected a diagnostic tool to the junction, maintaining the appearance of routine maintenance. What kind of plans? The Zenther Confederacy's dominance has always been built on more than just military strength, Vela explained softly. Their true power lies in convincing other species to accept their hierarchy as natural and inevitable, to internalize the belief that some must crawl so others may walk upright. Tyler adjusted a control node, buying time for their conversation. And Galter's involved in fighting against that somehow. Before the Zenther expansion, Galtar Nevkorian was instrumental in establishing the first multi-species cooperative accords. His diplomatic efforts laid the groundwork for equitable relations between vastly different forms of intelligence. Vela's fingers moved in subtle patterns as she spoke, adjusting settings that didn't actually need changing. When the Zenther took control of this sector, they recognized the threat his ideas represented to their system. Rather than make him a martyr, they gradually diminished him, reduced his status, isolated him from his network, and subjected him to the same wellness incentives as any other aging worker. Tyler thought of the frail alien he'd carried yesterday. So forcing him to crawl wasn't just about saving resources. It was about breaking a symbol, Vela confirmed. About demonstrating that even the architect of cooperation between species would ultimately submit to Zenther efficiency. Her large eyes blinked slowly. Until yesterday, when a human refused to accept that narrative. Tyler felt a chill run down his spine. I didn't know any of that. I just saw someone who needed help. And that, Vela said, is precisely why your action was so powerful. It was not calculated, It was instinctive. You demonstrated an alternative without even realizing you were doing so. The diagnostic tool beeped, indicating the completion of its analysis. Tyler checked the readout, then made a minor adjustment to the atmospheric sensors, fixing a problem that had likely been deliberately created to justify this meeting. There, he said in a normal volume. The sensors should be properly calibrated now. The fluctuation appears to have been caused by a routine dust accumulation. Thank you, Maintenance Technician Grant, Vela replied formally. Your efficiency is appreciated. As Tyler packed up his tools, Vela added in a whisper, 3 cycles from now, there will be a minor environmental emergency in Cargo Bay 12 during the night shift. As the maintenance technician on duty, you will be called to address it. Before Tyler could ask what she meant, the Tessin engineer nodded professionally and walked away, her long strides carrying her quickly down the corridor. For the next 3 cycles, Tyler performed his duties with exemplary efficiency, giving Supervisor Vox and Director Zinthor no cause for complaint. He kept his head down, followed protocols, and gave every appearance of having learned his lesson. But he noticed the subtle changes spreading throughout Station 47. Conversations in the communal dining area would pause when Zinthor's supervisors approached, then resume when they passed. Workers from different departments were mingling more during their limited recreation periods, forming connections across the strictly delineated hierarchies that the Zinthor had established. And most tellingly, during the daily wellness assessments, Tyler observed workers discreetly assisting those who struggled, not carrying them openly as he had done with Galtar, but offering an arm for support here, creating a distraction for supervisors there, allowing those in need to reach the medication dispensaries with their dignity intact. Small acts of resistance, hidden beneath a veneer of compliance. The station continued to function with its usual efficiency, but something fundamental had changed in the atmosphere. On the 3rd night cycle, as predicted, Tyler's communication device alerted him to an environmental emergency in Cargo Bay 12. As the only maintenance technician assigned to the night shift in his sector, he responded immediately, bringing his full equipment kit. The cargo bay was dimly lit and seemingly deserted when he arrived. The environmental alert on his device indicated a pressure anomaly near the far wall, behind a stack of shipping containers. As Tyler made his way through the maze of containers, he heard a soft sound from ahead, voices speaking in hushed tones. He slowed his pace, caution tempering his curiosity. The human has arrived, a voice announced, one Tyler recognized as belonging to Engineer Vela. Bring him, replied another voice, this one aged, but carrying an unmistakable authority. Tyler rounded the final stack of containers to find a small gathering in the shadows of the cargo bay. Engineer Vela stood beside an illuminated portable terminal, her tall form easy to identify. Nearby was a Plavian medical technician Tyler recognized from the day of his confrontation with security. And seated in a hover chair, his exoskeleton gleaming with the healthy luster of properly treated joints, was Galtar Nevkorian. Galtar, Tyler exclaimed, relieved to see the old Meverin looking so much improved. You're all right. Galtar's compound eyes seemed to smile, though his alien features were incapable of the expression as humans understood it. Thanks to you, Tyler Grant. Please, join us. Tyler approached the small group, noticing that there were others present as well, a dozen workers of various species, standing in a loose circle around Galtar's hover chair. He recognized some from the confrontation in the corridor, while others were unfamiliar. What is this? Tyler asked, looking from Galtar to Vela and back again. Some kind of secret meeting? This, Galtar replied, his translator rendering his voice with new strength, is the first assembly of the Cooperative Resistance Network on Station 47 in 15 cycles. Tyler blinked in surprise. Resistance? Against the Zinthor? Not against, Galtar corrected gently. Beyond. The Zinthor Confederacy maintains its power by convincing everyone, including themselves, that their hierarchy is the only possible system, that their efficiency is the highest goal of civilization. We do not seek to destroy them. but to demonstrate that another way is not merely possible, but preferable. Tyler looked around at the gathered workers. And you're all part of this network. The Plavian medical technician stepped forward. Some of us have been dormant members for cycles. Others, she gestured to several workers Tyler didn't recognize, were inspired to join after witnessing your actions with Galtar. I didn't do anything revolutionary, Tyler protested. I just helped someone who needed it. And that, Galtar said, is precisely why it mattered. The Zenther system works by isolating individuals, by making each person feel that they alone bear the burden of their position in the hierarchy. What you demonstrated was not merely compassion for me, but a willingness to stand against a system that demands cruelty as the price of efficiency. Engineer Vela moved to the portable terminal. For 15 cycles, the network across the sector has been dormant, maintaining only minimal communication. But your action, Tyler Grant, provided the catalyst we have been waiting for, proof that the Zenther narrative can be challenged not through violence or disruption, but through simple human decency. The terminal illuminated with a galactic map, highlighting dozens of stations and outposts throughout the sector. On each, a symbol pulsed with steady light. Each of these points represents a cell of the network, Galtar explained. For years, we have gathered information, positioned people in key roles, and waited for the right moment to demonstrate that cooperation, not hierarchy, is the true path to advancement. Tyler stared at the map, the scale of what he was being shown slowly sinking in. You're talking about changing the entire Zenther Confederacy. We are talking, Galtar corrected, about reminding everyone, including the Zenther themselves, that there are alternatives to their system. And the time has come to do more than talk. The old Meverin manipulated a control on his hover chair, and the terminal display changed to show the interior of what appeared to be a large assembly chamber filled with representatives of dozens of species. 3 days from now, Galtar continued, the Galactic Council will convene an emergency session to review evidence of systematic rights violations throughout the Zenther Confederacy. Evidence we have been gathering for 15 cycles. Tyler's eyes widened. You've been spying on the Zenther all this time? Not spying. The Plavian medical technician interjected. Documenting. Every wellness assessment that forced the elderly to crawl. Every worker discarded when their productivity declined. Every voice silenced for questioning the hierarchy. The Zenther are not evil, Galtar added, his voice softening. They truly believe their system is the most efficient, the most logical approach to organizing society. But efficiency without compassion is not advancement. It is merely streamlined cruelty. Tyler ran a hand through his hair, trying to process the implications. And what happens when the council sees this evidence? Some kind of intervention. Galtar's compound eyes fixed on Tyler. That depends, in part, on you. Me? Tyler looked around the circle of aliens. What can I do? Engineer Vela stepped forward. The council needs more than documentation. They need testimony, a voice that can speak to the possibility of change. Your actions with Galtar were recorded by the station's surveillance systems. That recording, combined with your direct testimony, would provide powerful evidence. Tyler frowned. You want me to address the Galactic Council? I'm just a maintenance technician. You are much more than that, Galtar said firmly. You are the catalyst who showed an entire station that compassion is not inefficiency. It is the foundation of true civilization. The gravity of what they were asking settled over Tyler. Testifying before the council would mean the end of his position on Station 47, possibly the end of his career in space altogether. The Zenther would not forgive such a direct challenge to their authority. This is a lot to take in, Tyler said finally. I need time to think. Galtar inclined his head. Of course, but know that whatever you decide, changes have already been set in motion. Your act of kindness cannot be undone, nor can its consequences. As the meeting dispersed, with workers leaving the cargo bay in small groups to avoid detection, Tyler found himself walking beside Galtar's hover chair. The elderly Meverin operated the controls with a dexterity that belied his previously frail appearance. You seem a lot better than when I last saw you. Tyler observed. The medication helps, certainly, Galtar replied. But there is a kind of strength that comes from purpose, from knowing that one's life still has meaning. You restored that to me, Tyler Grant. Tyler shook his head. I just did what anyone would do. No, Galtar said firmly. Not anyone. Not here. Not now. The Zenther system has been in place for so long that most have forgotten how to question it. You reminded us. They reached a junction where they would need to part ways. Tyler to return to the maintenance sector. Galtar to whatever secure location the network had arranged for him. Whatever you decide about the council, Galtar said as they paused, know that you have already changed more than you realize. Sometimes, the greatest revolutions begin not with declarations or protests, but with simple acts of decency that remind us who we truly wish to be. The old Meverin extended one of his appendages, laying it gently on Tyler's arm in a gesture that transcended the differences between their species. You carried me like a father would carry a child. In doing so, you carried all of us toward something better. With those words, Galtar guided his hover chair down the opposite corridor, leaving Tyler alone with his thoughts and a decision that seemed to grow more momentous with each passing moment. Over the next 2 cycles, Tyler went about his duties with mechanical precision, his mind consumed by the choice before him. The station continued to function as it always had, the Zenther supervisors maintaining their strict oversight, the workers performing their assigned tasks with apparent compliance. But beneath this facade of normalcy, Tyler noticed the subtle signs of change. Workers making eye contact across species barriers, small gestures of assistance that would have been unthinkable before, hushed conversations that fell silent when supervisors approached. The network Galtar had spoken of was more pervasive than Tyler had realized. Now that he knew what to look for, he could see its influence spreading throughout Station 47 like roots beneath seemingly barren soil. On the morning of the 3rd cycle, the day the Galactic Council was scheduled to convene its emergency session, Tyler was summoned to Director Zenther's office. He went without protest, suspecting what was to come. The director's 6 eyes studied him with cold calculation as Tyler entered. Maintenance Technician Grant, our surveillance systems have detected your presence in Cargo Bay 12 during the night cycle 3 days ago. You were observed in the company of several workers outside your assigned sector, including the Meverin citizen Galtar Nevkorian, whom you were expressly forbidden to contact. Tyler remained standing, his back straight. Yes, Director. Director Zenther's upper limbs twitched in apparent surprise at the admission. You do not deny these violations of direct orders? No, Director, I don't. The Zenther leader's voice took on a harder edge. You are also aware that Galtar Nevkorian has been designated a person of interest by Confederacy security, and that harboring or assisting him constitutes a serious offense. This was news to Tyler, but he kept his expression neutral. I was not aware of that designation, but I'm not surprised by it. Director Zenthor leaned forward. Explain yourself, human. Tyler met the director's gaze steadily. Galtar was a respected diplomat before the Zenther took control of this sector. You isolated him, diminished him, and forced him to crawl for medication he needed. All to prove that everyone, even someone of his stature, would submit to your hierarchy in the end. Your analysis is simplistic and emotional, the director dismissed. The Meverin received the same treatment as any citizen of his age and productivity rating. And that's the problem, Tyler said quietly. You've reduced everyone to ratings and metrics and forgotten that efficiency without compassion isn't progress. It's just streamlined cruelty. Director Zenthor went very still, all 6 eyes fixed on Tyler. You are quoting Galtar Nevkorian directly. This confirms your involvement with the subversive network we have been monitoring. Tyler felt a chill at the implication. If the Zenther had been aware of the network all along. Your human unpredictability has made you useful, Tyler Grant, the director continued. We have suspected the existence of this network for some time, but its cells have been elusive, communicating through channels we could not trace. Your involvement provided us the opportunity to identify key members. The director manipulated a control panel, and a holographic display appeared, showing surveillance images of the meeting in Cargo Bay 12. Tyler recognized Engineer Vela, the Plavian medical technician, and the others who had gathered with Galtar. All of these individuals are now being detained, Director Zinthor stated. The scheduled Galactic Council session will not occur, as the evidence they plan to present has been secured and the witnesses detained. Tyler's heart sank. Had his involvement doomed the very movement he'd inadvertently helped to energize? Had his simple act of compassion led to this crushing defeat? You appear distressed, human, Director Zinthor observed. Did you truly believe that a network of malcontents could challenge the system that has maintained peace and prosperity across 12 sectors for 3 centuries? Before Tyler could respond, the office door slid open and Supervisor Vox entered, his posture rigid with urgency. Director, he said, we have a situation in the main concourse. Director Zinthor's limbs twitched with irritation at the interruption. Explain. Workers from all sectors have gathered. They are refusing to disperse or return to their duties. How many? The director demanded. Approximately 800, Director. Representatives from all species assigned to Station 47. Director Zinthor rose from his seat, agitation visible in every movement. Activate security protocols. Deploy enforcement units. Security personnel are reluctant to engage, Director, Supervisor Vox replied, his voice betraying uncharacteristic uncertainty. Many have joined the gathering. The director turned to the holographic display, manipulating controls to show the station's main concourse. The vast central space, usually occupied only by workers moving efficiently between assignments, was now filled with hundreds of individuals from dozens of species. They stood in silence, not chanting or protesting, simply present, a deliberate cessation of the perpetual motion that the Zinthor system demanded. And at the center of the gathering, clearly visible despite the crowd, was a single hover chair, empty. Where is Galtar Nevkorian? Director Zinthor demanded. Supervisor Vox's 4 eyes blinked in rapid sequence, a sign of extreme distress among the Zinthor. Unknown, Director. The security team reported his detention cell was empty this morning. The surveillance records show no evidence of how he was removed. Tyler suppressed a smile, beginning to understand. Galtar had anticipated the Zinthor's response. The meeting in Cargo Bay 12 had been a decoy, a way to make the Zinthor believe they had identified and contained the network's leadership. But the true network was far more distributed than a handful of individuals in a cargo bay. It was hundreds of workers across the station, thousands across the sector, each making small choices that collectively amounted to a powerful statement. Director Zinthor turned back to Tyler, all 6 eyes narrowing. This is your doing, human. Tyler shook his head. No, Director. This is the doing of your own system. You taught everyone on this station that individuals don't matter. Only efficiency, only the hierarchy. And now they're showing you exactly how efficient collective action can be. The director's communication device chimed with urgent priority. When he activated it, the projected image of a senior Zinthor official appeared, his distinctive markings indicating a position of high authority within the Confederacy. Director Zinthor, the official began without preamble. The situation on Station 47 is being mirrored across all major facilities in the sector. Workers have initiated nonviolent work stoppages at precisely the same time, coordinated with unprecedented precision. The director's voice took on a strained quality. Deploy security forces from the Central Fleet. This insurrection must be contained before it spreads further. That would be inadvisable, the official replied. The Galactic Council has convened an emergency session as scheduled. They are currently reviewing evidence of systemic rights violations throughout Zinthor space. Evidence that has been simultaneously transmitted to all major news networks across the galaxy. Tyler watched as Director Zinthor seemed to physically diminish, the realization of what was happening settling over him like a physical weight. The Council has appointed a special representative to address the situation, the official continued. He will be arriving at Station 47 within the hour to begin negotiations. Which representative? Director Zenthor demanded. The official's image flickered, replaced by that of Galtar Nevkorian, seated not in a hover chair, but in the formal attire of a Galactic Council diplomat. The elderly Meveran's compound eyes seemed to gleam with inner light as he addressed not just Director Zenthor, but all of Station 47 through the station-wide communication system. People of Station 47, Galtar began, his voice strong and clear. I speak to you now not as a retired engineer, nor as a council representative, but as someone who has experienced both the best and worst of what intelligent beings can do to one another. The main concourse fell completely silent as Galtar's image appeared on the large display screens throughout the station. For 15 cycles, I watched as the Zenthor system gradually eroded the connections between species, replacing cooperation with competition, compassion with calculation. I experienced the humiliation of being forced to crawl for medication I needed, not because resources were truly scarce, but because my dignity was deemed less valuable than the demonstration of hierarchy. Tyler glanced at Director Zenthor, whose limbs had gone completely still, a sign of profound shock in the Zenthor. But 3 days ago, Galtar continued, a human maintenance technician named Tyler Grant refused to accept that calculation. In a simple act of decency, he demonstrated what we had all forgotten. That true advancement comes not from treating others as resources to be measured and allocated, but as beings deserving of respect regardless of their place in any hierarchy. The image shifted to show the recording from the station's surveillance system. Tyler kneeling beside the fallen Galtar, lifting him with gentle care, carrying him past the astonished crowd to the medicine dispensary. The footage had been edited to emphasize not just Tyler's defiance, but the dignity with which he had treated the elderly Meveran. The Zenthor Confederacy has brought remarkable technological advancement to our sector, Galtar acknowledged as the image returned to him. Their organizational systems have created prosperity for many. We do not seek to dismantle what works, only to infuse it with what has been missing. The recognition that efficiency without compassion is not civilization, but merely mechanism. Director Zenthor finally found his voice. This is manipulation. Emotional appeals designed to undermine a system that has maintained peace for centuries. But his words seemed hollow, even to his own ears. On the screens throughout the station, Galtar was concluding his address. The Galactic Council has authorized me to begin immediate negotiations with Zenthor leadership for reforms throughout the Confederacy. These negotiations will not be punitive but constructive, an opportunity to integrate the Zenthor gift for organization with the multi-species commitment to dignity for all. As Galtar's image faded, the gathered workers in the main concourse remained in place, their silence more powerful than any protest chant could have been. Tyler turned to Director Zenthor. You always said the Zenthor achieved peace through hierarchy. But real peace doesn't come from fear of stepping out of line. It comes from treating others with dignity, whether they're at the top of your hierarchy or the bottom. The director regarded Tyler with a complexity of emotion that the human could not fully interpret through the alien features. You truly believe this emotional approach can sustain a civilization as complex as ours? I believe, Tyler replied, that any civilization worth sustaining has to be built on something more than just efficiency. My grandfather used to say that you can judge a society by how it treats its most vulnerable members. By that measure, the Zenthor system was failing long before I got here. Director Zenthor was silent for a long moment, his 6 eyes blinking in an irregular pattern that suggested deep internal conflict. Finally, he said, You are dismissed, Maintenance Technician Grant. Your presence will be required at the negotiations with Council Representative Nevkorian. Tyler nodded, understanding that this was as close to acknowledgement as he was likely to get from the proud Zenthor. As he turned to leave, Director Zenthor added, The human capacity for attaching importance to individual cases over statistical optimization remains perplexing. Maybe, Tyler suggested. That's why the Galactic Council thought you needed us around. Sometimes the exception matters more than the rule. In the weeks that followed, Station 47 underwent a transformation that rippled outward across the entire sector. The negotiations led by Galtar resulted not in the dismantling of the Janitor system, but in its evolution, the integration of efficiency with compassion, hierarchy with cooperation. The wellness assessments were reformed. The elderly and infirm received the care they needed without humiliation. Workers from different species formed collaborative councils to address station operations, bringing diverse perspectives to problems that had previously been approached through only the Janitor lens of efficiency. And throughout it all, Tyler Grant continued his work as a maintenance technician, fixing what was broken, improving what could be better, but now as part of a team that valued his human perspective rather than merely tolerating it. One evening, as Tyler finished his shift, he found Galtar waiting for him outside the maintenance bay. The elderly Meverin, his exoskeleton gleaming with health, guided his hover chair alongside Tyler as they walked through the corridors of the station. "The council has asked me to extend an offer to you," Galtar said without preamble. "They are forming a new division focused on multi-species integration throughout the galaxy. Your perspective would be valued there." Tyler considered this as they continued walking. A promotion from maintenance technician to diplomat? That's quite a jump. "Not as great as you might think," Galtar replied. "Both roles require identifying what is broken and finding a way to fix it. Both require seeing beyond the immediate problem to its underlying causes." They paused at a viewport, looking out at the stars that stretched into infinity beyond the station. In the 3 months since the Station 47 awakening, as it was now being called, the reforms had spread throughout the Janitor Confederacy with remarkable speed, not through force, but through the power of an idea whose time had come. "I appreciate the offer," Tyler said finally, "but I think I'll stay here a while longer. There's still work to be done on Station 47. Galtar's compound eyes studied Tyler. "You surprise me, Tyler Grant. Most humans would eagerly embrace such an opportunity for advancement." Tyler smiled. "Maybe that's another way humans are unpredictable. Sometimes we want to finish what we started before moving on to something new." He glanced down at Galtar. "Besides, who would carry you to the medical bay if you needed it?" The elderly Meverin made a sound that Tyler had come to recognize as laughter. "Thanks to you, my friend. There are now hundreds on this station who would do so without hesitation." And that, Tyler realized, was the true measure of what had changed. Not just policies or protocols, but hearts and minds. A simple act of decency had reminded an entire civilization of what it meant to be truly advanced. As they stood together looking out at the stars, Human and Meverin, Tyler thought of his grandfather's words about judging a society by how it treats its most vulnerable. By that standard, the civilization they were building together held the promise of greatness. And it had all begun because a human janitor refused to watch an old alien crawl. And that was the end of the story. If you listened all the way to here, don't forget to leave feedback about what you thought of the story in the comments, whether positive or negative. Your feedback helps us improve. Also, leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. And I'll leave here on the screen another video that I'm sure you'll like. Big hug, and see you in the next story.